Why do some move forward and get unstuck and some don't?
Very important question. Very important question. Glad you guys are with us. We're going to go ahead and read a review before we answer that question. And this one is called Amazing Content. It says, I have not experienced betrayal in my marriage, but I still find this content so relevant and helpful. They're real, funny, and so relatable. This podcast has really helped open conversation up with myself and improve my relationship with my spouse and who I am inside. That's a rad.
Yeah, I love
That's a
that
rad
one.
review, and certainly thankful for it. And I had a childhood friend that I still keep weekly contact with, who doesn't share my story, but listened to it and was like, "Oh my gosh, like there's some cool stuff in here." So I just appreciate hearing that, because obviously we're fairly niche. We're fairly
Just
niche
their name.
as podcasts go. But the truth is to see that has great impact on others outside of this arena is really a great thing. So thanks for the review. And if you haven't yet, pop over and rate and review and subscribe, and we might read your review on a future episode. So thanks for doing
we
that.
just hit a big number, so thank you guys for doing that.
Okay, so tell us what that number is.
I don't know. I have to Google. I have to hurry and look. I don't remember things, you guys. Over 1,000. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Over 1,000 ratings.
And it's still 5-star reviews. So thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yep. Appreciate you guys being here. So let's do this. Let's jump in, Brannon.
Let's do it. So though I want to explain how this question has come to be a little bit, in that, Ashlynn, Coby, you guys have been running groups now for years, right?
Yes.
I've been doing therapy groups. I've been doing individual therapy. I've worked with, I don't know how many people, just thousands of people, thousands and thousands of hours of doing this work. And it's really fascinating to me. Some people thrive and move forward, and some people get stuck, stay stuck. It doesn't matter how much money they spend. It doesn't matter how much time they spend. They just stay miserable and stay stuck. And it's both the person struggling with addiction stays stuck in his addiction or her addiction, or the betrayed partner stays stuck in the pain of the betrayal. So we really want to flush out in this episode the difference between those who actually find peace and find healing and find recovery, and those who don't. And I believe there's one ingredient, and I wouldn't tell Ashlynn what this was before we started.
And I must have been wrong because I was wrong, and that's okay. So I'm going to wait for the magic answer, but until we get the magic answer, we're going to talk about the details.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, Ashlynn and Coby, and what I'm saying about some people moving forward and some people not, is that true?
Yes, 100%. We were that way. And it's this, like, sometimes he would ebb, I would flow, and vice versa. And I know we both got mad at each other for not moving at the same speed at some point.
Yeah.
Which did not go well.
Now, I've worked with couples and individuals who cover the gamut. So I've worked with people who come in ready to go, and they are so motivated, and they just go, and they eat up recovery. They love it. It becomes a part of their life. It's a hopeful thing. It's an exciting thing, and they just soak it in. Now, that's some people, and then there's probably the good majority are like you guys, that are like, I'm interested in this. I really like this. I'm really motivated. Ugh, I don't like that part of it. This is difficult. I want to hunker down. And so, like, they kind of, they move forward, and then they take 2 steps back, and then they take 3 steps forward. And it's like, oh, what is this thing that we're doing? And I think that's fairly normal. And then there's the people who come in and just don't get better. They just continue to get worse and worse. And they want to pay money to a therapist to take their problems away, but they don't actually get better. And there's a reason why they don't get better. But here's the thing. Here's the magic ingredient. And I want to be really careful when I say it, because it can seem invalidating to the position that you're in, both as the addict struggling with this thing that feels like you're shackled down and that it's hopeless, and both as the betrayed who feels like you've been hurt by somebody, and that the pain is really great. But I'm going to say it. Okay, I'm going to say what it is. The reality is healing and recovery is a choice, and it's about willingness and accountability for what you want to create in your life. And if you want to create peace and you want to create healing, you can. It's within your power to do so. If you want to stay stuck in blame, if you want to stay stuck in shame, and now I say this like it's so easy to get out of these things. It's not. These things are really appealing for a lot of reasons. There's not accountability to these things, and there's not vulnerability in these things.
It's validation.
It's validation in my pain. I can sit there forever and ever, and I can become more angry and more shut down and more isolated. But the fact of the matter is that hope is always real, and you can always move forward and move out. It just might be facing some really scary things and doing some really hard things. Is that what do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think we give you validation here on the podcast. I hope that's our hope. It's like, you're not alone and this is normal. These things are part of the process. And I hope that you I know so many of you do, take the podcast for what it is, and then you go and do your work. And I listened to a podcast today, and they were talking about prioritizing and creating rituals, which Coby and I have become really good at creating rituals, and we're not as maybe hardline scheduled, but we're good at being consistent and showing up in those rituals. And she's in the podcast, they talked about prioritizing maybe therapy. And they said, a therapy appointment is around $130. And so most of us look at that and go, $130. I don't have money for that. But we'll go to Target and we'll spend $130 because everything was a great deal. And it's different, right? It's short-term happiness versus long-term wellness. And that made so much sense to me, because I know in our position, I didn't want to spend the money, and signing that, like, our money away and going, okay, we're really committing and prioritizing our mental health was scary. It was frustrating. It was okay. It's also paying the babysitter. It's also giving up date night because now we're paying for so much help. But to me, it was long-term wellness versus short-term. We're okay. Short-term, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. I want long-term.
Right. It's interesting, Ashlynn. Some people they'll pay the bill and then still not do the work, so that they've invested the money, and then it's like, well, the therapist wasn't good enough, or like
they didn't do their job.
They didn't do their job, and they still don't want to invest the emotional energy and work that it takes for healing.
Which we both did that, Brannon. The therapist we went to for 16 months, she was a great therapist. We were choosing not to be totally honest, not to talk about. I took zero ownership. Coby took zero ownership.
Oh, and that was when I was having the second affair.
Yeah, so there's massive lies and secrecy behind it.
Yeah. How can a therapist help me?
Yeah.
Because we're like, I don't know, they're just mean and we fight and we have these patterns, but the roots were never talked about.
I really was going to that therapist expecting and hoping for some kind of Hail Mary to work, to give us connection. I was really hoping that she would have fixed you, and so that would have made me feel better.
And I went to shut him up. That's the truth.
And
investment in change. Listen to what Ashlynn and Coby are saying, you guys. They're saying, I went for the other person to change so that then I could be happy. And the reality is if you're investing money, if you're investing time, then invest that on some good, humble self-reflection and willingness to face hard things. And if you do that, then you're going to see change in your life. If you don't do that, if you are wanting just your partner to change for things to get better, or some miracle to just come happen and take place, that chances are it's not going to just happen.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play devil's advocate a little bit of, so like, okay, Brannon, great. Like, I can choose healing. Wonderful. Well, what about like my partner refuses to do any work? They refuse to change. I'm completely miserable in my marriage and in my life. And you're telling me that I can just choose to be happy and choose to change and choose to get better? What do you guys think about that?
Well, we're not in that situation, and you guys know that. But guess what? I do see so much power. I know Brandon said this for years, but I didn't really see it in action until I saw people who've completed the Beyond Betrayal program, which was solely focused on the woman betrayed. We rarely talked about the other person. It was like 100% do your own work. Do your own work. And
Regardless of what's going to happen in the
yeah.
relationship.
And so to see women stepping into this, it's painful to say, my partner's going to do nothing, but I'm going to invest in this thing for my long-term health and wellness. And the outcome may not be what I want. So for them to go through that process and to find hope, to find this new part of themselves, to find their voice, to say, hey, this doesn't work for me anymore. Things like that to me is, I think, what you're talking about. And it seems so big and like, but how is that going to work? Because in the meantime, it is still uncomfortable to deal with your spouse when you're over here and learning new things, and maybe they're over there going, therapy's stupid, and that podcast is so dumb, I'm not listening to it. That's hard. That's this coming up.
Ashlynn, there's a conundrum that happens, and it happens not just with the betrayed. It's not just the betrayed getting healthy and the addict not coming along. It happens the other way around as well, where sometimes the addict starts to get really healthy. And the conundrum is this, is you start to realize, if I get healthier, meaning if I am more honest, more boundaried, more empathetic, more available for intimacy, those type of things, then my relationship will probably end. Because if I get healthy, my partner is not going to like that. And if I get healthy, I'm going to be more boundaried. I'm going to be more honest in the relationship. And so there's this conundrum that happens of, I don't want to move forward in my recovery because I'm pretty sure that moving forward in my recovery is going to end my marriage. So now I'm stuck, because so now what I don't want is that. So I'll sit back and try to force them to work their recovery, because then if they get better, then we can get better. And we can't get past the reality that you can't control your partner and you can't force them into recovery. And so that conundrum is really a tough thing. And I think from our vantage point, it's easy to see, you know what, just work your recovery. Like, just focus on you and work your recovery and things will work out. We know that's true. And people might be thinking, yeah, Ashlynn and Coby, that's easy for you to say because you're still together and, you live in the clouds of, butterflies and rainbows and all this stuff.
We don't, just like FYI.
Wait, we do?
Where are those butterflies?
Yeah. But I can say, and I'm sure you guys can say too about your clients and the people you work with, that every single person that I've seen be humble, be hardworking, be willing, that they have ended up right where they're supposed to be, whether they're married or not. And they've looked back on this whole experience as a blessing, to strengthen them, to help them heal in ways that they couldn't even see that was imaginable. And so, yes, recovery is absolutely the best option than living in a hell and staying stuck there. So,
there's a really interesting dynamic to this, which I think is important to consider. And that is when there are partners who are in various different stages in recovery. I think what's really important to know, and I have a guy that I've worked with who is in group who is doing fantastic, and his partner is also doing fantastic. And they have both leaned into EMDR. They've both learned how to own their stuff. But guess what? Life still happens. and life still triggers both of them based on their early life childhood trauma, their early life trauma, and the trauma that they have experienced in their relationship. And the interesting thing is in this particular case, the dude who's recovering from addiction is in a place where he can be, and I told him this, in fact, just today, that he was the perfect partner for his wife
Mm-hmm.
because he's really been devoted. Like, he's been mentally focused and he's been really consistent in his efforts for well over a year. And he has made extraordinary progress. She has made extraordinary progress. He started before she did. So naturally, he's going to be more skilled and more mindful. And that facilitates a beautiful process for him in supporting her, in being there for her, in standing by her side while she does her own work.
Yes.
And while she does her own EMDR. So what I hope is that for those of you who are in working recovery with your partner, whether you're together or not, just remember that the skills are not meant to be learned simultaneously. That's not the point. Recovery is meant to meet us all where we are. It simply is, as we acquire the skills that recovery demands, we can be better humans, better partners, better individuals, better professionals, better parents, or any of those that are applicable. And so when thoughts of comparison sneak in, why aren't you with me? Why are we still through this? Remember that the skill set that you do have can be the perfect gift to your partner for where they are. And you have to see them as needing your help. And that might be just being the listening ear who's not going to fix anything.
Right. Because when you are a jump ahead, which we've both been in that position and we've both done this, where we start to, I remember our therapist Amy saying, you know too much. Now you need to go back and start in the basics again, because you're starting to use what you know to, figure each other out. Why are they doing this? And then we're therapizing and we're saying, hey, you're in shame, and hey, you're doing this. That's not helpful. And so it's going back to the really basic skills we learned at the beginning and saying, okay, we can do this. Remember, we got ahead of ourselves, but we still have to do these really basic things to stay healthy together and support each other.
Right. It's such this like interesting thing in that couples come in usually for help because there's pain in the relationship, betrayal has happened, or like the relationship is a reflector back of, hey, something's broken. And because something's broken here, our relationship is falling apart. But here's the interesting thing is, and so you start to deconstruct it and you realize the relationship isn't working and there's all kinds of unhealthiness going on there, but the real issue isn't the relationship. The real issue is something different. It's individual. And so on an individual level, you go and you do your hard work, your soul searching, your like really hard work in learning how to be an authentic, open, honest, humble person. And what's interesting about that is when you separate from that relationship and looking for that relationship for all of your needs to be met, you work on yourself and you become more solid. Then the relationship, if both people do that, the relationship comes together and it's a totally different experience, but it works, and it works really, really well. And so it's this weird thing where it's like you come in because of the relationship, we separate you out and you do your individual work, and then the relationship actually works. Right. And what's scary about that is I think a lot of times there's zero guarantee that if you do your own work, that your relationship's going to work. Those are independent things. Well, not totally. It's half of the equation, right? And so there's not a guarantee. And so it's trudging forward anyways. It's doing this for you. It's inside of you. And whether you work it out with your partner or you don't, you're going to get the benefits from doing that anyways. So
Oh yeah. Okay. So 100% agree on that. And I'm going to talk and ask you a question, both of you.
okay.
Okay, Brannon, I know you have had clients come in and I want to find solutions. I'm coming to you, the expert, and saying, fix my marriage. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I come in and I tell you about our last fight and all the wrong things Coby did.
Okay.
How does that help me go to therapy and find my answers?
Yeah. Well, so that's an interesting question, Ashlynn, because let me tell you how I would handle it. I would actually first validate the frustration. I wouldn't agree with everything, but I'd because if I just said, Ashlynn, if you sit and you blame him, you're going to get nowhere. So knock it off. What
You're
is that?
fired, Brannon. You're
Yeah,
the worst
exactly.
therapist.
I just got fired. Okay. So I would validate, like, man, yeah, that's frustrating. That fight sounds hard and sounds like you're in a tough spot. And I would feel frustrated too if I were you. If I'd say that if that's true, right? So I'd do that first. I'd build some rapport. But after a while, I'd start to take withdrawals from that rapport bucket. And what I mean by that is after a while, I'd say, Ashlynn, you've been stuck here for a while, wallowing and blaming Coby. How are you a part of this? What are you creating? How are you engaging in this interaction with him? Where's your boundaries? Where's your own self-care? Where's your healthy communication skills? And we'd start to look at those things rather than just sit on how bad Coby sucks. Because after a while, you'd get sick of it, Ashlynn, even though like it feels good to not take any accountability.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd realize as your therapist, you're not moving forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Coby and I, maybe we weren't doing it individually, but we would go and I felt like we were doing the same work every week, like different fight, but let's take this fight to therapy and let's see if she can figure out what our problem is. And, we're just pointing finger. We had zero skills, pointing fingers and just like, yeah, if they would do this and if they would do that. So she didn't have a lot to work with in that case. Coby, I know you get guys, I'm sure, that come and it's, I'm relapsing because my wife did this, or I'm not doing my dailies because my wife isn't doing this. Is that part of groups ever, or they stay pretty in their own lane?
No,
I'm sure he never hears that.
I never said that. That's like super foreign to me.
Yeah, you never blamed.
He always honored me.
I wouldn't go there. There's no way I'd show up to the therapist and then just out Ashlynn. I'm not trying to create teams here or alliances. This isn't Survivor.
Alliances.
Maybe it's Therapy Survivor.
We do.
Survivor therapy, right? It's like, I think my mind goes to this. Okay. Whenever I've had weighty conversations with my sponsor, his name's Rob, and he's been wonderful. I know for damn sure that I'm going to have a conversation with him because I'm spinning in my own stuff and I can't see 3 feet in front of me, but the 3 feet, I can't see past 3 feet in front of me.
But I'm
the
standing
3
right
feet
there
in front of me, it's all Ashlynn. That 3 feet, it's all Ashlynn. It's all Ashlynn. Beyond that, I can't see anything, and especially my own part.
So I really like Rob. I've never met him, but just kidding.
Rob is Ashlynn's, champion. And but the truth is that really, when I have conversations with him that I know are important, that I know I have to have ownership of my own stuff, I know for sure that the question he's going to ask is, Coby, what is your role or part in this?
Yeah.
And that's the piece that always gives me pause. And it always makes me think, okay, if I really want to actually move forward, I have to be honest with myself and saying, okay, this is it. And he'll, just like you, he will hear me and he will validate me. Mm-hmm. And then he will redirect that energy into saying, okay, now let's be contemplative. What's your part?
Yeah.
What do you own in this? And that's the only bleeding thing that matters. That's the only
That's it.
thing.
That's what you have
matters.
control over, Coby.
Yes. And
That's it.
so I think we all go to group or to therapy or to our sponsor, to 12-step, whatever you're in, and say, this is what's happened. And we want some validation. We want to hear that, yeah, that sounds hard. And I can see that, maybe they were escalated in their emotions. They didn't respond right. But there is always the other part, which is us. And for me, sometimes therapy isn't this really productive, because right now we're not doing recovery work. We are doing that shadow work. We're doing all those inner child, whatever.
Deep work. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're choosing to do that. You don't have to. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, they're still in therapy. Someone told us this weekend, you've made therapy your God and our religion. We haven't, you guys, but
Right.
we're choosing to do this. So I go in and I don't feel like I'm not super productive, right? I'm not reprocessing the way that I would normally do. But what happens is I have these small little, because I'm being so focused and mindful, and I have this person there with me, really making me see my stuff. I have these like little things that come out that I wouldn't have had I not gone to therapy.
Yes.
I start to see, oh, like that makes me sick. And it's something I
Yes.
did to Coby. How does it make him feel?
Right. Right.
And it's hard to do that for me without that specific time set aside every Wednesday
Mhm.
at 2:00.
to self-reflect and to
Yeah.
actually listen.
Mhm.
But Ashlynn, one of the differences between what you're saying and some clients that stay stuck is you actually, when your therapist says to you, like, look at within, is it the words I use a lot is it I? Like, what
Mhm.
about I? A lot of people can't do that or won't. They're too defensive. They're too shame-based that they
Mhm.
don't want to go there. And right, one thing about a good therapist, or like Rob, for example, Coby, when Rob says to you, how are you creating this? Or what are you doing? Be clear about this. When I'm guessing, but I'm guessing what I know from me and my clients, when Rob says that to you, Coby, he's not saying it because he's on Ashlynn's team.
Right.
He's not saying it for
Legit.
Ashlynn. Who's he saying it for?
For me.
For Coby.
For you.
Because I'm seeing in one color.
Yes.
And it's red, and I'm just seeing red with Ashlynn. That's it.
That's it.
But there is a rainbow of colors that I am missing. There is a whole, there is way more than one color going on here. So
Yes.
you're exactly right on that.
Right. Because a lot of times it's like, well, yeah, you're just seeing their site. And it's like, no. You don't know what I'm doing here. What I'm actually doing is I'm seeing where you're getting yourself stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to get unstuck. And you're stuck in the easiest place for us to hide is behind our partner's suckiness.
We can all do that.
Suck. Yeah.
Everyone else sucks. I have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. None of the problems are mine. Look at them. It's so easy.
There's a really interesting kind of process on this, right? It's, and I'll just speak for us. Okay. Just you and me, Ashlynn. And that is, we grew up with an expectation of how our married life is supposed to be.
Mhm.
And
very different.
Within
for
5
both.
minutes, that expectation is like shattered to the wind. It's
It wasn't like Cinderella.
Yeah,
No.
right.
No.
It was gone like a fart in the wind. It was like not even close. Not even close. And then the more time we live in that place of, wait a second, my expectations aren't getting met. Is that because I'm doing something wrong? And is that thing that I'm doing wrong defining my relationship? Is it defining me? And if I feel badly, or if I feel anger or sadness or despair about my relationship, does that define me? And what does that mean for me? And how does that compare to the original expectation that I had when we first started? So ultimately, what I'm kind of trying to propose here is that if you take a step back from the expectations, if you take a step back from the idea of like the pie in the sky Disney princess relationship, yes, where it's just this epic moment of love and bliss, I'm going to be devastated. But if I see myself as a human who will continue to develop and grow, and the way that I do that is by being stretched in my soul.
Yes.
And moreover, the things that I struggle with. Okay. We've said this once before only, but for those of you who are faith-based listeners, struggle doesn't equal sin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Struggle doesn't equal sin. Sin doesn't define a person. Struggle doesn't define a person. So if you can give yourself some grace and realize this is a season that we're in, and it's a really hard season, but my struggles really in earnest don't define me, then what one might find is some more grace to say, you know what, I've been stuck on this for like 3 months and I can't seem to get through this, but that's okay because I know it doesn't define me. And I know I just need to be willing to be stretched and grow. And I'm going to trust the process. So remember that your struggles don't define you in your relationship. Your partner doesn't define you. And you can move forward in productive and constructive ways because there's access to help across the board, no matter what the issues are. So embrace the stretch, embrace the pain of stretching, embrace the discomfort of facing it, and realize, you know what, just own it because it doesn't define you.
Yeah. When a pile of shit lands on your head,
This is an explicit episode.
when it lands on your head, you can suffocate in a stinky, horrible death and think this should not have happened. Or you can look up and you can start climbing out of it and it can turn into fertilizer for you.
There you go.
And it can be really good fertilizer. And that really is the difference between the people that move forward and the people that stay stuck. The people that stay stuck are caught in that. Coby, you said
They
it
see
so
shit,
well.
and the people who move forward see fertilizer.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
true. It's
Which one are you?
you see growth. It's we talk about being stuck in your relationship, like, well, my partners shouldn't be this way and they're so horrible, but it's also God. We do it to our circumstances, to like, God, where were you? How come you haven't shown up for
Totally.
me?
Yeah.
We do it in life, like, how come I don't have more money? Why don't I have a nicer house? Why don't I have this? Why don't I have that? And so we stay stuck in blame and stuck in the shoulds of how things should be, and we don't get fertilized by where we're at and by those struggles. And so you said it really well, Coby. It's that growth mindset that sets you free, and ultimately gives you the energy to move forward.
It's kind of like, sorry, our girls take Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu, and it's kind of like if I go into Muay Thai, which is Thai boxing, right? Thinking, man, this is going to be so unbelievable. This is going to be awesome. I'm so excited. And then in the first 5 minutes, I take a jab right to the kisser. I'm like, wait, what's happening here? Why am I getting punched? This is, who said you could do that? Why am I getting, think of how futile that is to complain about being punched at Muay Thai, right? And so it's also like, if I'm going to live life, it's like, don't live under the guise of like, I'm living life, I'm not going to get hurt. It's not going to be hard. Things aren't going to be tumultuous. It's like, just expect that you're going to get punched right in the kisser, and just say everybody's going to. So that doesn't make me anything but normal.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think we keep having continued experiences of, my gosh, we've done all this work. I don't have betrayal trauma triggers, but my group today said, well, you were triggered. What does that even look like if you don't have betrayal triggers? Like our whole life, we can have triggers, right? I was triggered by a massive amount of work texts over the weekend, because I'm like, I'm not in that headspace where I could take it. And so it had zero to do with Coby, with, it was my own stuff. But as I was able to just, okay, I'm going to go and take care of me. I'm going to go do the things that I need to do to get into the headspace, protect my energy. I took a break from my groups. I said, you guys support each other. I can't even listen to your check-ins right now. Just do it. And they were awesome. And they did it. One of my favorite things is to come to the groups that I run. And, 1 week they'll do their check-in. They own their part. They maybe walk through something and then say, okay, help me have eyes to see. They ask for kind of input from me, from the group, and there's insight, and they're taking notes. Like, they're deconstructing a fight. They're deconstructing, how they showed up. They're not just coming and saying, here, I did all my dailies. And
Yes.
then this is what my partner did. Okay, I'm done with my check-in. So they'll do that and ask for feedback. And then I'll give them like maybe a little challenge. So maybe this week you're going to do this. And they come back and they did the challenge.
There you go.
And
Yep.
I am like, oh my gosh, you're doing the
You're
things.
going to move forward. Yep.
Yes. And they are so excited and then sometimes they're partners in Coby's group and they're like, oh my gosh, my wife did this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, instead of triggering each other and pushing each other's buttons, we're helping each other soften those walls and bring them down a little bit as we get safer.
I have, if there's anything I love most about my job is that I've seen people in the worst of the worst of the worst of circumstances, trauma that you can't even imagine. And I've seen those people in the worst of the worst find some real healing, some real gratitude and purpose for all of the stuff that's been handed to them. And it's those type of people that you were just talking about, Ashlynn. It's the people that are just willing and humble to follow through. Their heart is just open, and it's just inspiring to me.
Yeah,
it's
it totally is.
Amazing. The resiliency of the human soul, and like I get to see it and the growth that happens, and it's available for anyone. I know that. It's just a matter of are you willing? Are you willing to actually do it? So
love it. Guys, just want to point out, and this thought just came to my mind, and it really does, but if you need help with where you are, reach out to Therapy Utah, get an intake with Brannon, and move forward.
And with you guys as well, right? How do they find you guys?
Yeah, if you guys feel like, okay, I need to take my recovery next level, because maybe you already are in therapy, but you want to skill up, you can reach out and you can go to ashlynnandcoby.com and you can click on mentoring and you can see what's available there for you. But the truth is it's a new year and it's possible for you to move forward, and it's possible for you to make progress. So where you need it, reach out and surround yourself with the proper support and the energy that you need, because guys, if we did it, if Ashlynn and I did it, oh my gosh, you guys, if I could just give you a peek to the past, you'd be like, oh my gosh.
If we had a podcast of the old us, you guys would be like, they are wacko. So if we can make change.
But also you guys are freaking awesome. So there's that too. So
well, I think I'm freaking and Ashlynn just makes us awesome. That's how that goes down. But guys, thanks for being here. We appreciate you listening. Share that episode if you feel like it, because there's good that can be done with it. So until next time, peace out and lean into it.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.